Hi everyone, and welcome back to my GNM Digestible Morsel series. So this video is focused upon how I have found it best to share this information with others without them thinking you've gone crazy. And this is based on my own experiences as a therapist and just generally somebody who wants to help others and share the information with them. So it seems a bit extreme to dedicate an entire episode to this topic. And I was originally going to include it along with the therapies episode, but it became so lengthy that I decided to split it out. And I'm glad I did, because it can be very difficult information to actually get across. And it turns out I've tried so many different ways, so I just wanted to share that with you. So having come this far and watched all of the series, hopefully, you'll understand that knowing the 5 biological laws, or at least having an idea of the concept of them, is really beneficial to healing. And this is because it helps us to understand what our body is going through, even if we don't understand the actual biological program or the specific science behind it. We understand that basically our symptoms mean our body is healing and not malfunctioning, and therefore we can view them without fear. And then we can trust the process and allow our healing to complete properly. The problem is, because GNM requires such a massive shift in awareness for many, we can be left with the dilemma of not knowing how to approach others with the knowledge so they can help themselves in this way, particularly if they are not open to alternatives. You will need to understand, as I've come to, that not everyone, in fact, not many actually, are ready to hear this information. But that doesn't mean we cannot sow little seeds that may grow in their minds and encourage them to find out more at a future date. So I'm speaking here from mine and Lloyd's experience in wanting to shout this from the rooftops when we first heard about it. But in doing so, we had a huge variety of responses and reactions. Only a few people actually jumped straight in and found it fascinating. Some were just curious, but actually were quite skeptical. Some even accused us of running a cult or joining a cult. And that was just our awake friends, not even people who, weren't very awake. I know that we switched some people off and made them actually resistant to the information, this is why I feel that this is an important topic to discuss, because it actually threatened their beliefs. And I know I lost clients, and we also lost shop customers who liked their old way of thinking, and they had comfort in taking products that they thought were going to help them and protect them. All of a sudden we were advising them to allow the healing, allow the symptoms, and the things that they were doing to feel more comfortable might not be helping the process. So this is the reason I put this episode together, to give tips on what we have found to be the best way to approach others without sounding like you left your tinfoil hat at home or have begun worshipping some weird deity and grown 2 heads. So if someone is already in a biological program, especially if it is quite intense, you don't want to be bombarding them with science, because they will likely just switch off and won't be able to take it in. And this is the same for somebody who is not really open to alternatives. You really need to choose your approach carefully with these people. And this will vary from person to person, or even from audience to audience. I've come to realise that most people have comfort in living in their bubble. And this is true in all aspects of life. Not many want to know that they've been duped their whole life, that they have been living a lie. This is why we've had such mixed reactions, even from those who are open to alternatives, and have actually lost friends for sharing this information, like I said. Understanding GNM, we can appreciate that forcing this life-changing information on people who are not ready or who are vulnerable may even cause them to have a DHS. So the first thing I do when introducing GNM to friends or family is first assess how awake or receptive they are, and actually you need to also be aware that those into natural and alternative health can actually be the most difficult to address, because they already feel like they've had a paradigm shift. They have formed strong beliefs in things like natural cures for cancer and certain foods being bad, for example. So they already believe they're in this alternative shift in awareness. I think this is why it was so challenging for me. But I just knew it made sense, so I allowed my mind to be open to it. Having written a book and having some followers, you know, it actually took a lot for me to absorb this information and to turn around to those people and say, look, I had it wrong, I have to rewrite my book. And I know there are some people in the natural health field who are very well respected and have loads and loads of followers who know GNM and who refuse to make that shift and share the information to their followers, and they could actually make such a huge difference. It's such a shame. So for people, you know, to be open-minded, I first approach the subject by letting them know I have learned such great information that is really empowering, but it really turns what we think that we know upside down, and that I'd be happy to share it with them if they were interested and wanted me to. So rather than imposing the information on them, you are giving them a choice. If they invite you to explain, they will more likely listen, as they are the ones who approached you and asked for the information. So that could be a good way in. But for others who may not be so receptive, what I have found most useful is living my truth, letting people understand that the research I've done has simply led me to think differently and have a different approach to my health, and allow their curiosity to grow as they watch me and my family encounter health challenges and deal with them quickly, or offer a simple understanding to your symptoms, such as, oh yeah, I got a sore throat after not being able to say what I wanted to earlier that day. You may find that sooner or later they come to you themselves and ask the questions. How did you get over that so quickly? How is it that you never seem to get ill? Why don't you go to the doctors? Things like that. You've heard the saying, you can lead a horse to water. Well, you can lead people to information, but you can't make them think. So allowing people to approach you for explanations negates this, as they are already thinking, and you are not giving them what they may deem as unsolicited advice or information, as they have asked for it. So they are much more inclined to listen, like I mentioned. Some other ideas on how you can invoke curiosity. Here's some statements that I sometimes use. You know, GNM is not just another therapy or healing theory. It is based on real proven science, and this gives us a completely different way of thinking. Or you could just go into an example which actually works really well, a real life scenario. Some more examples. Do you find it strange that people, and especially children, who don't naturally fear their illness, they seem to suffer less and get better quickly? Or maybe make a comment about yours or their history, such as, do you ever wonder if your car crash caused or contributed to the arthritis that you've suffered since then? Or in a film, if somebody becomes ill after a trauma, you could try and name their conflict. For someone who is conspiracy-minded, you could say, did you know that they have been suppressing the laws of biology because the medical establishment rely on these not to be known? This sort of teaser-type introduction may just sow a seed and get them thinking, and maybe even invoke a question. It is really difficult to know how to explain GNM to begin with. I've explained in previous videos, to me, that is a completely different way of thinking and understanding biology, nature, life, and God. This new paradigm is based upon the foundation of scientific laws that have been buried for many years underneath theories, assumptions, and hypotheses. The enormity of it is just too much to convey in a simple sentence. So maybe you don't need to convey it in a simple sentence. Maybe you need to allow people to discover the enormity of it for themselves and just be there to listen and to chat about it when they do. It depends on who I'm speaking to, but I will usually say something like, cancer is just a process the body goes through when it's coping with and recovering from a trauma. The science goes very deep, even into our development in the womb, and there are these control centres that are in the brain that are affected by trauma shocks. It's just a few little things that could just invoke a response back, that's all. It's just like so many different wonders of the science of GNM. I'm sure you can find a lot more than that. I've added a page to my website recently called New to GNM, Where to Start. So this may be a good place to direct people to start with. I've aimed all my information to be beginner friendly and a very gentle introduction to GNM, including my book. Because I remember what it was like to first find it out, and some of the information out there is just so very, very detailed and scientific, and I'm sure that that can put people off. So I've tried to make things as simple and user friendly, I suppose, as I can. So next we will look at approaching others who may be in a biological program already and you are wanting to share this information to help with their healing. So first you need to understand that you cannot help everyone. So take that pressure off yourself now, as it won't do you any good. It can be really frustrating seeing someone suffer when you know you can help, but most of the time you just have to say something like, I know of an alternative perspective which has a very high recovery rate if it is adopted. So if you're interested, just ask. So many times I see people walking along and they're like, hobbling over crutches, or they've got such obvious conflicts going on, and I just feel like going up to them and saying, look, do this, but you just can't. Understanding the 5 biological laws, we understand that when someone is in healing, it is detrimental to their healing to push information on them, and the potential of DHS that it could cause them by understanding that they have lived a lie all their life and have been made to be fearful of their health could really prevent them from healing, because it could cause them to have a lot of stress. However, understanding that their symptoms are healing may also help them to allow the process and let go of fear. In my experience, I first discovered GNM while I was conflict active in an attack conflict, and this was quite a severe attack conflict. I'd been active for, it stayed active for a few months. This was as a result of having a very high risk thermography scan causing me to believe something in my breast was attacking my body. During the first 3 months when this anxiety was particularly intense, I just could not focus on this new information I'd been given. It was when the anxiety had reduced enough for me to function more normally each day that I felt drawn to going back and studying further. Learning that cancer was a natural process that basically healed itself and that metastasis was an unproven theory downgraded the attack conflict very significantly, so much that I was able to get back to normality. It was very liberating, though, due to the way that I dive straight into things and don't take things by halves. I continued to study GNM very intensely that year, and therefore I prevented myself from going into healing. I believe this was due to the stress of unlearning everything I thought I knew and building it all back up again with this new foundation. Like I previously explained, any stress, be it mental, emotional, physical, will hinder or even prevent healing, and it was not until 15 months later that the healing symptoms of the corium skin attack conflict began. So while I'm very grateful to GNM as it downgraded and even lightly resolved my conflict, it did prevent the healing from happening, and I believe this made the healing more intense when it did. So you need to be really careful. I think ideally I would have been ushered out of the biological programme with a more gentle approach and then left the full study in until after the healing had completed. So here are some ways I have found effective in approaching the topic with somebody who is already in a biological programme, and this is based on my experience with clients mainly. First of all, don't blind them with science, and don't get frustrated when they are fearful. Just be supportive and try to alleviate their fear with reassurance and compassion. Gently explain that their symptoms are a sign that they are healing from a trauma, and ask them if anything happened that upset them before their symptoms began. Ask them if they think that this may have contributed to their symptoms. Or if they are dismissive, just say you find it a little coincidental, but that's okay. Do not push. You've sown the seed already. Point out to them how in nature there is disease and healing all the time. Gently explain that we are hardwired for survival. So when we have a trauma, our body will naturally make changes to help us cope. Then it will put it back to normal. These kind of gentle statements get people thinking, this is really what you want to do at this moment. If you can work out the conflict theme, you may want to ask them if they had that type of shock before their symptoms started. And this is a really good way of introducing them to GNM, because if you get it right, they will think you're either psychic or there is actually something in this GNM thing. So someone gets diarrhea and you say, did you have some news recently that you couldn't digest? For example, someone has a sore throat on the left side and you say, was there something that you couldn't speak out about or something you couldn't express recently? Or they have a left-sided eye infection and you can say, what is it that you saw that caused you distress recently or wish you hadn't seen? Then when the time is right, which may even be straight away, they will likely approach you and say, how did you know those things? If they experience a new symptom which shows that they are progressing in healing, just say, yes, that's right, that's the epicrisis, so don't worry. Or, that's really a good sign as it shows you are healing. Obviously, while still giving some sympathy. Often when I've been in healing, I'll say to Lloyd, oh, I have a really bad pain or something like that. And he's like, oh, that's great news. And I'm left thinking, oh, gee, thanks for that. We mustn't forget sympathy, and that the added stress and anxiety when we are in epicrisis as well is something that we need to be supportive of, because if we fully understand GNM, this can cause the fear to creep back in. So lots of reassurance is needed at this time too. When they're feeling better, you can talk through their experience and match it with the compass if they're open to it. This may help them to wake to GNM as they have had a fresh experience that makes sense. Then you may wish to direct them to the new to GNM webpage that I have, as I already mentioned, or share some case studies that you know of, and hopefully enjoy learning and discussing GNM together. Though you need to also appreciate and understand that they may not be ready for the full haul, but the seeds are sown and you just need to give them a little watering now and again for them to grow if they are meant to. So I hope that helps you to share the information with others. And for now, this is the last episode in this basic introduction to the biological laws. There are more advanced aspects of GNM, such as schizophrenic constellations, which explain both mental issues and personality traits, and maturity stops too. This is when there are more than one conflict active in certain areas of the brain. These are best explored once all this information has really set into your subconscious and you've completely adopted the new paradigm. And these are are available on the Learning GNM website and other websites who share the knowledge too. I may add to the series once my knowledge grows, as we are always learning every day. But for now, thank you so much for watching the series. I hope you have learned something really valuable from it. I will continue to add new videos to my channel now and again, so please make sure you are subscribed. If there are any specific topics or aspects of GNM you would like me to cover in a separate video, please drop me an email. Thanks very much, and I will see you all again soon.